let's go.
One who takes it out either with his right hand or with his left hand in his bosom or on his shoulder is liable, for such was the method of carrying used by the sons of Kahas. If he carried backhandedly with his foot in his mouth, no, that's not good, right?
Or in his mouth, not with his foot in his mouth.
No, that's what it says here. If he carried backhandedly with his foot, comma, in
Comma
his
in his
mouth.
mouth. Yes, okay. Commas change meanings. You know the famous thing, let's eat grandma or let's eat grandma.
Right.
Save lives.
All right. So with his elbow in his ear, in his hair, or in his money belt, with his opening hanging downward between his money belt and his shirt, in the hem of his shirt, in his shoe or his sandal, he is exempt because he did not carry out in the manner of those who carry things out. One who intended to take out an object in front of him and it slipped behind him is exempt behind him, and if it shifted to the front of him, he's liable. Indeed, they said, a woman girded with an apron, whether in front of her or behind her, is liable, for it is common for it to shift around. Rabbi Yehuda says also letter carriers. Okay. One who takes a loaf of bread out to public domain is liable. If two people took it out, they are both exempt. If one could not take it out by himself and two took it out, they are both liable. Reb Shimon, however, exempts them. One who takes out
Uh,
foodstuffs less than the
uh,
prescribed.
sorry. Yes, carry on, carry on. It's the middle of the. There was
One who takes out foodstuffs less than the prescribed amount in a vessel to exempt even for the vessel because the vessel is secondary to it. A live person on a bed is exempt even for the bed is secondary to him. A corpse on a bed it is liable. And similarly, one who takes out a part of a corpse the size of an olive or a piece of an animal's carcass the size of an olive or a piece of a dead sheretz the size of a lentil, he is liable. Reb Shimon, however, exempts him. Okay.
Okay. Notel Tiponav. So Guy is busy. So now we've moved off the subject of carrying, and now we're looking at gozes.
Okay.
Sorry, no, not at gozes, but at other malachas, because the first one is gozes, but there are other malachas involved in this Mishnah, and well, let's just go into it and see. So hanotel tiponav zor b'zor. So if a person uses his fingernails to cut the fingernails of the other hand, or b'shinav, or he bites them off, or v'chein saron. Same thing if he uses
I'm
his
sorry, Shaw. I think I'm in the wrong place. I don't know why, but
mishnah.
Mishnah.
You just
Oh,
finished.
I went back. I'm sorry.
Okay. Um,
Okay. One who removes his fingernails. Go ahead.
he's cutting his fingernails or his hair or his mustache, sfamo v'chein mizakana, or his beard. Okay. Using either his fingernails or I'm not sure how he would use his teeth on his hair, but
Right.
okay. Unless it's on somebody else. Uh, V'chein zakan, oh, v'chein hagodeles. Also, a girl who braids up her hair. That's a tolda of bone for balding.
Right. Okay.
V'chein hakocheles, one who colors
Paints her eyes.
paints her eyes. V'chein hapokesis. Now, pokesis is an interesting word with a couple of opinions of what it is. One says it's that she makes a parting in her hair, and I'm not sure why a parting would be a malacha. But apparently they say that's part of being bone and
Uh,
uh, uh, making some sort of structure out of her hair. And but there are those who say that pokesis is one who puts on face paint, in other words, rouge or face or something like that. Okay, v'chen pokesis. Rabbi Eliezer is mechayev. He says all of these are chayav v'chatas for doing it in error. V'chachamim osrim mishum shvus. But the chachamim say that this is it's not a doraisa. All of these are derabanans either because of a shinoi. Um, or because let me just see, I'm not that okay. But if he was taking off his fingernails with a kli like a nail clipper, that they would agree would be a khatas.
right.
Um, And hold on, the other malachas, derech gezer, and the other ones that the building of the hair and whatever they said they also did it as a gezerah because of one, but not but that's not the ekar malacha. So
So painting the eyes of the Torah of writing.
yeah, but
It's
according to the Mishnah, it's only Rabbi Eliezer holds this as Doraisa. The Chachamim hold that this is a gezerah derabanan, not to do this.
So it says Gemara's conclusion is that by painting her eyes, she's liable for dying.
Hmm. But
Yeah.
now, the question is it an Issa Daraisa or an Issa Darabanan? And Chacham
Right.
is saying it's a Darabanan. Okay. Uh,
Okay.
Mishum Shvus. Hatolesh me'atitz nakuv. Now, if you've got a flower pot that's got holes in the bottom, in other words, it's still considered as if it's connected to the ground.
Right. Right.
If somebody plucks something off that tree, um, that in his chayav because it's considered like it's connected to the ground. V'she'enu nakuv. However, if you've got a flower pot that does not have holes in the ground and you uproot something or pluck something from there, it's patur because it's not considered connected to the source. It's already considered like it's detached. It's
Right.
patur aval patur. Rabbi Shimon poter b'zeh u'b'zeh. And Rabbi Shimon says doesn't matter if it's in an atzitz. I don't care if it's got a hole or not. It's not connected to the ground, and therefore Rabbi Shimon says it's patur, which is not the halacha. Okay. Um, oh, have you got a new volume?
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Hazorek meirus hayachid lirshus harabim. Now, so returning back to the subject of hotza'a, of carrying things out. So up until now, we've been talking about where a person is physically carrying the object into the rishus harabim. Here, we've got a case where somebody throws the object from the rishus hayachid into the rishus harabim, or meirshus harabim lirshus hayachid. Either case, it's the same as if you carried it and you chayav.
Okay.
Lirshus yachid, lirshus yachid, rishus harabim be'emtza. What happens if from rishus yachid into another rishus yachid is asar midrabanan, unless you've got an eruv between the two places. Um, but uh, in this case, we're talking about there's a rishus harabim between the two private domains. And by the way, the Gemara defines down this case as where he threw the object so that it passed through the airspace at less than 10 tfachim. Because above 10
Uh,
tfachim in the Rishus Harabim is not Rishus Harabim anymore.
right. Right. Okay. It's low. Right.
Okay, so um, the question is, so Rabbi Akiva says that if that something that's even though it's moving, it's considered as if it's stationary, and therefore even so you made it pass through the Rishus Harabim, and that would be chayav. But I'm not going to be too quick about saying what the halacha is here. I think it was like Chachamim. But anyway, the Mishnah carries on into base Ketzad. So how is this? So Shtei Gezuztra. So Gezuztra is a balcony. Zo keneged zo birshus harabim. So there are two balconies facing each other across the Rishos Harabim.
Right.
The Hamoshit v'Hazorik mizor lezo patur. If somebody passes from one to the other over the Rishos Harabim, or he throws something from one to the other
Right.
through the Rishos Harabim, that's patur. Okay. Hayushtehen b'diyuta achas. However, if they're two on the same side of the road, and the balcony projects from the house into the Rishus Harabim, and now you've got Rishus Harabim in between the two balconies, but
Right.
but on the side of the house. Okay, I assume Archibald's got a diagram, right?
That diagram had right. Right.
Okay. Hamoshit chayav. So if one passes them over from one to the other, then you would be chayav. Vazorek pater. But if you threw it, you're pater. Why is this? Shekach haisa avodas Levim. That's how the Levim passed the objects over from one to the other. The Bnei Gershon and the Bnei Merari, who had wagons to carry their
Right.
stuff, they would be going in a row, and if they wanted to pass the load from one wagon to the other, they would line them up and they would pass them forward, backward, between the two, but not. It wouldn't go sort of across the Rosh Hashanah in terms of they wouldn't be standing on either side of the Rosh Hashanah. There'd be two wagons, Rosh Hashanah
Right.
between, and yeah.
Well, right.
Shtei agalos zo achar zo b'rishos harabim moshitin hakrashim mizol lezo. The Mishnah describes exactly how the Bnei Levi would carry things with the wagons and the rishos harabim in between them. Aval lo zorkin, they didn't throw things either because they were too heavy or because of the sanctity of the items that belonged to the mikdash, to the Mishkan. Okay. Chulias habor, new subject. A person is digging a well, and while they're digging the well, of course, the sand is piling up on the outside. So you've got a ring of sand around where he started digging. Vasela shelahen gavohin asara v'rochban arba'a. And now the cellar, in other words, the ring around it is now 10 tvachim high and four tvachim wide. Hanotel mehen nosen al gaban chayav. So now if the walls have become a uh, I don't think the walls themselves become we're talking about where the walls themselves complete the measure of the well. So the well is now 10 deep, and it's
Uh,
am I right that it would use.
right. Right.
So the well has now become 10 tvachim deep, measured from the top of the room, even though the land on the outside is lower than the rim, and from the rim of the land, the actual hole that he's dug is less than 10 tvachim, but the 10 tvachim is completed by the ring of sand that he's dug out from the outside.
From the ground up.
So
The ground
now,
up.
so now the well is considered a rishus yachid, and the outside is the rishus harabim, and if you carry between the two of them, you'd be chayav, even though the well is not yet 10 tvachim deep in absolute terms without that ring.
Mm.
Okay.
All right.
Back to Bav Yud.
Let me just speak 1 second on the ground here. Wait. Um, okay. All right. All right. Back to okay. Above you, we may go out with a locust egg, or with a fox tooth, or with a nail from a gallows, or for the purpose of healing. These are the words of a mayor. But the Chachamim say even on weekdays they are forbidden because of the prohibition against following in the ways of the Amorites. A major rule was stated by the Chachamim concerning the Sabbath. Anyone who forgot the essence of the Sabbath and performed many labors on many Sabbaths is liable for one sin offering. One who knew the essence of Sabbath and performed many labors on many Sabbaths is liable for every Sabbath. One who knew that it is Sabbath and performed many labors on many Sabbaths is liable for every primary category of labor. One who knew it is Shabbos and performed many labors of one category of labor is liable for but one sin offering. The primary labors are 40 minus 1, sowing, plowing, reaping, gathering together, threshing, winnowing, and sorting, grinding, sifting, kneading, and baking, shearing wood, whitening it, combing it, dyeing it, and spinning, mounting the warp, setting the two heddles, weaving two threads, moving two threads, tying a knot or untying a knot, sewing two stitches and tearing in order to sew two stitches, trapping a deer, slaughtering it, skinning it, scalding it, tanning its hide, smoothing it, cutting it, writing two letters, or erasing in order to write two letters, building and demolishing, extinguishing and kindling, striking the final blow, and transferring objects from one domain to another domain. These are the primary labors, 40 minus 1.
I think
One
there's
more.
one more. Yeah.
Should be one more, I think.
Wait, no. No. It's finish
That was
it.
it? Okay.
That's it.
All right.
To Gimel. So I was actually just looking. A friend of mine. You remember the question that I had the other day, which is relevant back to this Mishnah now that we just did Chazara on, where I was asking about we said there was a basket. If somebody took a basket out and
Right.
he's only chayav once because of the basket, and I said, but that's what do you need the basket for? Even if I carried all of the bottles out in my arms, I'd still be only
Right.
chayav one because it's one malacha. And a friend of mine pointed me out that in the Gemara, Tosfos asks exactly the question.
Yeah.
So he
That's
sent he sent it to me over here, where with the where Tosfos says this obviously this is it's pashut. So he says Rabbeinu Tam comes and says that if you had a case where he was informed about one type of thing and it says niskaper and he got his kapara. I'm not sure how he could possibly have got his kapara on the same Shabbos. Because you're going to bring your chatas on Shabbos. I don't think you can do that. V'chazav v'noda lo al min acher, and then he went back and he took something else out and he said, "Oh gosh, I just did it again." And then somebody said, "You can't do that." And he says, "Ah, I forgot," and he goes back and does it again. So in such a case, he might actually be chayav three times because there was a yodiyah in between each thing. So
right.
he had the same thing with the guy who's holding the basket and
And that's your picture from
he
yesterday.
pushes the basket out so that one object inside the basket is in the Rosh Hashanah and says, "Hey, you're putting things into the Rosh Hashanah." He says, "Oh, sorry." Duh. And then he comes back and pushes the basket out a little further. "Hey, you just put something else into the Rosh Hashanah." So there he'd be patur because it's all inside one basket.
Right.
And
That was your picture from yesterday.
that's yeah. So
The guy
that's
with the basket.
from a couple of days ago. Yeah. So
No,
that's
it
exactly.
wasn't yesterday. It was yesterday.
It was a couple of days ago that I asked this question. Anyway, carry on. We've got
Okay.
Orla.
Uh, Orla, base you'd Dalid. If leaven which of truma and of kilim chiron fell into dough, and neither this suffices to leaven nor that suffices to leaven, both together they leavened. It is forbidden to non-priests, but permitted to priests, and Reb Shimon permits to non-priests and to priests. If articles were oiled with unclean oil and were oiled again with clean oil, or if they were oiled with clean oil and were oiled again with unclean oil, Reb Eliezer says, I go after the first, but the sages say after the last. Yotza Abira was one of the disciples of Beit Shammai, and I asked Reb Gamliel, the elder, when he was standing in the eastern gate, and he said, it never renders forbidden unless it suffices to leaven. Okay.
Um, hold on. I lost you over there. Um, that was yesterday's ones, I think, or a couple of days ago. We're supposed to be today in Orla. We're supposed to start with Mishnah 15, Tesvav, of Tavlin Shel Troma.
Why do I have this in the wrong place?
I don't
You don't
know.
know. I don't. Oh, I. Okay, I know why. Um, so we'll do base. Well, hey,
T- t-
condiments. Right, 15. Condiments of truma and kila karam which fell into a pot, and neither these suffice to flavor nor those suffice to flavor, but together they flavored. It's forbidden to non-priests but permitted to priests. The Red Shimon permits to non-priests and to priests. If a piece of flesh of the most holy of pickle or nota were cooked with other pieces, they are forbidden to non-priests but permitted to priests. Reb Shimon permits to non-priests and to priests. If meat of the most holy and meat of the lesser holy have been cooked with ordinary meat, they're forbidden to the unclean but are permitted to the clean. Okay, I know what I did wrong. Turned back the wrong way.
okay.
Okay.
Back
Yes.
to Shvius.
Okay. If one had produced of the seventh year and beer time arrived, he allots foods for 3 meals EV for each, and the poor may eat after beer, but not the rich. So says Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says both the poor and the rich may eat after beer. If one inherited seventh year produce or receives it as a gift, Rabbi Eliezer says it should be given to whoever will eat it. But the sages say the sinner should not benefit; rather, it should be sold to those who eat it, and the money should be distributed to anyone. If one eats from seventh year dough before challah has been separated from it, he is guilty of death. The seventh year cancels a loan, whether it's secured by a bond or as a not. Credit granted by a shop is not canceled, but if it was converted into a loan, it is canceled. The Yehuda says the first is canceled. The wages of a hired worker are not canceled, but he converted them into a loan, it is canceled. The Yossi says any work that must cease with the seventh year is canceled, but whatever need not cease with the seventh year is not canceled. Okay. And Taharos. Okay, dollar base. No, dollar Gimel.
Gimel. Yeah.
If a sheretz was in the mouth of a weasel or a nevela in the mouth of a dog, and they passed between tahor people, or tahor people passed between them, this doubt is ruled tahor, since the tumah did not have a place, did not have a place. If they were picking up at the sheretz or in the vela on the ground, and a tahor person said, "I walked to that place, but I do not know whether I touched the tameh item or I did not touch it," the uncertainty is ruled tameh because the tumah has place. If an olive twine of a human corpse was in the mouth of a raven, and it is certain whether it formed a roof over a person or over utensils in a private domain, the uncertainty regarding a person is ruled tameh, and the uncertainty regarding utensils is ruled tahor. If one filled 10 buckets of water and a sheretz is found in one of the buckets, it is tameh, and all the others are tahor. And if one pours water from one vessel to another, and a sheretz is found in the lower vessel, the upper one is tahor. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And also, hey.
Right. On account of 6 cases of tuma, uncertainly we burn truma. On account of the tuma, uncertainly at a base of pras, and on account of the tuma's uncertainty of earth, which comes to the land of the nations. On account of the tuma, uncertainty of garments of amaretz. On account of the tuma, uncertainty of utensils that are found. On account of the tuma, uncertainty of spittle that is found. And on account of the tuma, certainty of human urine, which is in the proximity to animal urine. On account of definite contact with these items which constitute a question of tuma, we burn truma. Rabbi Yossi says also on account of a question of contact in a private domain. But the sages say in the private domain we suspend truma, in the public domain it is tahor. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And Menachos. Menachos, Dalit Hay. The kavitim of the Kohen Gadol were not brought by halves. Rather, he brought a full Isseron and divides it and offers half in the morning, half in the afternoon. If a Kohen offered half in the morning and he died, and they appointed another Kohen in his place, he should not bring half an Isseron of his own, nor the half of the first Isserons. Rather, he brings a full Isseron and divides it in half, and he offers half, and half is destroyed. Thus, 2 halves are offered and 2 halves are destroyed. If they did not appoint another Kohen from whom it was brought, Reb Shimon says from the public. The Yehuda says from the heirs, it was offered whole. All mincha offerings are brought as matzah, except for the leavened bread of the Todah offering and the shadei lechem, which are brought leavened. Reb Meir says he extracts sourdough from them, from within themselves, and leavens them. Reb Yehuda says this too is not preferred. Rather, he brings sourdough, places it within the measure, and then fills the measure. They said to him, this too will be deficient or excessive. All mincha offerings are kneaded with lukewarm water, and one guards them from becoming leavened. If its remainder becomes leavened, it transgresses a prohibition, as it is written, any mincha offering which you shall offer to Hashem shall not be made leavened, and they are liable for its kneading, its arrangement, and for baking.
Okay. I'm going to let you do the last chazar on
Okay.
yourself because I got to run.
Okay, great. Have a great day. Thank you.